Are you familiar, based on your training and experience within the lab, of something called a proficiency test?
Yes, I am.
And can you explain to the jury what is your understanding? What is a proficiency test?
Proficiency tests are given in the different types of analysis that we do at the lab to ensure that we are maintaining our competency in that type of analysis.
And did you take a proficiency test in hair and fiber identification in 2022?
Yes, I did.
And what was the outcome of that proficiency test?
That was successfully completed and required a remediation.
Yeah, no, I don't think that works. Successfully completed requires remediation. Those don't sound like the same thing to me. Those sound suspiciously like not the same thing. I was successful, but also I required remedial, required further training, required further help. So tasks failed successfully? It sounds like a euphemism for I failed. But sure, let's go with I was successful, even though clearly I was not. Okay, so we've got a crime scene analyst, a lab technician who can't tell one thing from another. And this is one of the people who has evidence against Karen Reed, the person who's not quite sure what they're looking at. I suppose it makes sense, though. That's just par for the course over here in Massachusetts, it seems. Cool. Let's listen to some more.
Can you explain to the jury what remediation is and why this specific proficiency test required remediation?
A remediation occurs when you have an inconsistent answer with that is expected by the laboratory or by the test provider. In this particular instance, I had an inconsistent answer with the expected laboratory result.
In other words, I got it wrong.
And how was the remediation completed in this instance?
After the inconsistent answer was identified by
The
my
wrong
technical
answer?
leader, we had a verbal discussion about why I came to the conclusion I did. To be more specific, each item had two samples. One of the samples for item 4, I determined as being a human hair without a root, when in fact the root was present. We had a discussion on how I came to that conclusion, and then she then mounted that hair back on the microscope, and we discussed different ways that I could have come to the correct conclusion.
Okay, so we're a lab technician, and one of the things we do with our time is look at hair samples. And we've got a hair, and I'm not quite sure whether or not the hair has a root or not under the microscope in the lab testing environment. And then, with the inconsistent answer, otherwise known as wrong, I had a discussion, otherwise known as someone explained it to me, in which they went over my reasoning and showed it to me under a microscope and then helped me understand, in which case they pointed out how dumb I was. Cool. So even the lab people have some problems when it comes to their accuracy and reliability. Cool. Yeah. All right. Massachusetts may have more systemic problems than I expected at first.
During that remediation process, were you permitted to continue to perform casework during that time?
Yes, I was. I was permitted to continue to perform casework in hair and fiber identification.
So at a time in which you had come up with I'm sorry, that wasn't the euphemism. I apologize. I think it was inconsistent was what we were going with. Inconsistent answers. At a time in which you came up with inconsistent answers and required remediation, otherwise known as going to remedial school, you were still permitted to do your work and still permitted to look at samples, even though we know that you don't necessarily know what you're looking at, but that's okay. You're still allowed to do your job and look at evidence, including evidence in this case. All right. I mean, sure, why not? Let's add that to the mix.
As far as the remediation was concerned, if you could just explain to the jury sort of what the issue was and what that remediation process looked like again.
Sure. So I received 4 items in hair and fiber identification. Each item was told that they came from the same source. Item number 4 consisted of 2 items. One was a hair with a root. The other was also a human hair with a root, but I had said the root was absent. That was due to the fact that I didn't see anything like that at the microscope. It was something that was new to me. My technical leader reviewed that hair with me under the microscope. She showed me various characteristics such as the loss of scale pattern and the soft appearance of the root, which I thought was damage. Because we had this discussion and I agreed with the different characteristics that she showed me, she then gave me several hairs, both with damage and with roots, so that I could basically continue to understand the difference of what I was looking at. Once she looked at all my notes and agreed with everything that I had done, she then issued me an additional test to demonstrate my continued competency in this.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand that correctly. According to you, you were presented 2 hairs, both of which had roots, and you said you'd never seen anything like that before. And you're a lab technician who is examining live samples in real cases and continuing to be allowed to review live samples in real cases. But it's okay. You're allowed to look at these things because you've never seen anything like that before. What exactly is the training process for a lab technician? Shouldn't that be like something presumably you've seen before? If one of your jobs is to analyze hairs, perhaps you probably should have seen hairs that have roots before, but according to you, you've never seen anything like that before. What exactly are the certification and training processes and educational processes of the lab technicians in the first place? Is there some sort of schooling that you go to or some sort of thing? Is it all on the job training? You learn as you go. So it's okay that you had never seen that before because, hey, first time, man, totally understandable. It's totally understandable you've never seen it before because why would you have seen anything before that? Why would you have seen it before? You're just a lab technician and your job is to analyze things in real cases. All right, that's fun. That's good news.